Welcome to the Sleep Paralysis tapes. Settle into the dark, pull the covers close, and let the heavy silence fill your room. Tonight, we descend into chilling tales of the unexplained. Before the screen fades to pitch black, I invite you to become part of this archive. If you have your own terrifying encounters, please contact me and I will narrate your story in a future tape. If these shadows bring you comfort, please like, subscribe, and tap the bell. Now, close your eyes. Do not look at the foot of your bed. Just listen and let us begin. Leo Henderson was 41 years old and he thought he was making a fresh start. He was a freelance writer, doing articles about travel and history, the kind of work that lets you do it from anywhere. In the autumn of last year, he decided anywhere should be a quiet Essex village called Pentlow. He bought a place called the Old Forge, a 1930s cottage on Church Road. It needed work, which was the point. He saw the renovation as a kind of therapy, something solid to focus on. For the first few weeks, it was exactly that. The cottage was detached, surrounded by a garden that had gone a bit wild with ivy and old roses. The village had a pub, a church, and golden fields. It was quiet in a way that felt profound, not lonely. At least not at first. His days fell into a rhythm. He'd write in the morning in the small front room he'd made his office. In the afternoons, he'd work on the house, sanding floors and painting walls. The physical exhaustion was a gift. He'd sleep deeply, or so he thought. The kind of sleep where you don't dream, or you don't remember it. Now, you need to understand something about sleep paralysis. Most people think it's just a bad dream, but it's not. It's a very specific neurological event. You wake up, but your brain hasn't released your body from the paralysis of REM sleep. You're fully conscious, but you cannot move a muscle. You cannot speak. And often your mind scrambles to make sense of the terror. It projects something into the room with you. Leo's first episode happened 3 weeks after he moved in. He went to bed tired around 11. The house was silent, just the old pipes settling. He fell asleep quickly. He woke up at 3:33 in the morning. He knew the time because his digital clock was on the dresser. The red numbers burned in the dark. He was instantly, utterly awake, and he immediately knew something was wrong. He tried to sit up, but he couldn't. He tried to lift his arm, but nothing happened. A cold, leaden weight held him down. Pure panic flooded his system. His heart hammered against his ribs like a frantic bird in a cage. He tried to call out. A thin, strangled breath was all he could manage. And that's when he saw it. At the foot of his bed, standing perfectly still, was a figure. It was tall, unnaturally so in that moment. It wore a long, dark habit, like an antiquated nun's robe. The hood was deep, casting the face into a pool of absolute shadow. He could see no features, just that void. It didn't move. It didn't make a sound. It simply stood there, facing him. Leo's mind screamed. He fought against the invisible bonds, straining every muscle until he trembled. But his body was not his own. He was a prisoner in his own skin, forced to stare at this silent watcher. The clock ticked over to 3:34, then 3:35. The figure remained. This is the part people often get wrong. The terror isn't in the jump scare, it's in the duration. It's in the endless, stretched out seconds where nothing changes, where the impossible thing is just there, a new piece of furniture in the dark. He lay there, trapped, for 14 minutes. At 3:47, as suddenly as it had begun, the pressure released. He gasped, his body jerking as control flooded back. He scrambled upright and fumbled for the lamp. The light clicked on, harsh and yellow. The foot of the bed was empty, just the rumpled duvet and the old floorboards. He sat there, breathing hard, sweat cooling on his skin. He told himself it was a dream. A vivid, horrible dream brought on by stress and new surroundings. He got up and checked the house, every room and every closet. It was empty. It was just a cottage. He made tea and sat at the kitchen table until dawn broke, watching the garden emerge from the grey. He believed the rational explanation. He needed to. Of course he did. What else was he supposed to do? The episodes didn't stop. They settled into a pattern which was somehow worse. Every few nights, like clockwork, Leo would jolt awake at 3,033 a.m. He was paralyzed. That cold, leaden dread poured into his veins, and she would be there at the foot of the bed. The same dark habit. The same impossible stillness. For exactly 14 minutes. Until 3:47 a.m. He started to dread the evening. He'd avoid caffeine. He tried sleeping pills. They just made the paralysis thicker, more glue-like when it came. And it always came. Now, a reasonable person might have left, packed a bag and gone to a hotel. But Leo wasn't feeling reasonable. He was feeling investigated. This was his fresh start, his project. He wouldn't be chased out by a bad dream. He was a writer. He dealt in facts. So he went online and ordered proof. 3 battery-powered security cameras. One for the hallway, one for the living room, one pointed at his own bedroom door from the outside. His logic was simple, and it felt like armor. The cameras would see nothing because there was nothing to see. They'd show him lying still in bed, trapped in a nightmare. And seeing that proof, that empty footage, would break the spell. It would let his rational mind win. He installed them himself. The little green lights glowed in the dark. They gave him a sense of security. For a week, he checked the app every morning. The motion-activated clip showed nothing of note. A cat from next door crossing the garden, himself walking to the bathroom. Night vision footage of an empty hallway. His bedroom door closed. Nothing. He almost started to believe it was working. Then came the night of October 27th, a restless night, even before the paralysis. A low-pressure system was moving in. The lights in the house flickered just once around midnight, a brief dip. He woke, of course, at 3,033. The nun was there. The 14-minute vigil. Released at 34/7. He was so tired of it, so afraid that he just lay there gasping. He was too exhausted to even turn on the light. In the gray morning, with a mug of tea shaking in his hand, he opened the security app. There was a clip from the hallway camera. Timestamp 3,033 a.m. His breath caught. The camera shouldn't have triggered. He hadn't gotten out of bed. He tapped the thumbnail. The video opened. Night vision, grainy. The empty hallway. The closed door to his room. The banister at the top of the stairs. For 3 seconds, nothing. Then the power dimmed. The image stuttered. The brightness flared for a half-second as the camera's circuits strained. When the image stabilized, it wasn't empty anymore. A distortion hung in the center of the hallway. A shimmering digital mess, like a corrupted file. But as he watched, his heart freezing in his chest, the pixels seemed to pull themselves together. They resolved. They solidified into a shape. A tall, narrow shape. A long, dark skirt. A hood drawn over where a face should be. He was standing perfectly still, facing his bedroom door. It was her. It wasn't a shadow. It wasn't a trick of the light. It was a figure composed of the digital static itself. A thing made of glitches and missing data. The timestamp in the corner ticked onward. 3,033, 1,035, 3035. Leo realized he was holding his breath. The figure did not move. It just stood there in the middle of his hallway in the dead of night. For exactly 14 seconds. At the 14-second mark, the figure simply unraveled. It didn't walk away. It didn't fade. It dissolved back into a brief shower of digital snow, which then cleared, leaving the empty hallway once more. The clip ended. Leo sat there. The tea had gone cold. The mundane sounds of the morning birds, a distant car, felt like they were coming from another world. This was the proof he'd wanted. It just wasn't the proof he'd expected. He had captured it. Not a dream, not a hallucination, a recorded event. An anomaly that existed in the same digital space as a video of his neighbor's cat. And this is where the real problem began. Because before, the terror had a boundary. It lasted 14 minutes, and then it was over. It belonged to the night. But now, he could watch it in the daylight. He could pause it, rewind it. He had a file. He played it again and again. Each time, the same silent, static figure coalesced from nothing. Each time, it stood its watch. Each time, it lasted precisely as long as his paralysis did. He wasn't just having episodes anymore. He was being visited. And now he had the receipt. The rational part of him was starting to crumble. You could tell by his routine. The writing stopped. The sanding stopped. Instead, Leo spent his days in a kind of frantic, quiet research. His browser history was a map of a mind trying to find solid ground. Sleep paralysis studies, folklore of Essex, historical hauntings. He was looking for a box to put this thing in, a label he could stick on it that would make it stop. He'd play the hallway clip over and over. He'd pause it. The figure never got clearer. It was just there, a statue made of bad reception. And that was almost worse. If it had been a clear face, a recognizable shape, he could have fought it. But how do you fight static? He started sleeping with the lights on, a small pathetic lamp on the nightstand. It didn't prevent the paralysis. Nothing did. But when he'd snap awake at 3:33 trapped, at least the room wasn't pitch black. He could see the empty space at the foot of the bed. Sometimes. That felt like a victory. An empty room is just a room, even if you can't move in it. This went on for weeks, a tense, exhausting stalemate. Then came the storm. It was the night of November 15th, a proper autumn gale, the kind that shakes the window frames. Rain lashed the cottage in horizontal sheets. The wind sounded like a low, constant scream in the chimney. Leo was in the living room trying to read, jumping at every creak and groan of the old house. The storm felt like an amplifier for his nerves. He decided to go to bed early, to try and sleep through the worst of it. As he passed the living room window, a flash of lightning lit up the garden. For a split second, it was day. The twisted rose bushes, the sodden lawn, the fence, all empty. Just the violent, thrashing weather. He turned away. That's when he heard it. 3 knocks. Not a tapping. Not the wind rattling a loose tile. These were 3 massive, deliberate, thunderous impacts against the living room window. Boom, boom, boom. They shook the glass in its pain. They vibrated through the floorboards. They were so heavy, so physical, that Leo actually felt them in his chest. He froze. His breath caught. Another flash of lightning, almost instantaneous. Illuminating the window again. Nothing there. No fallen branch, no debris. Just black, streaming glass. His heart was a frantic drum against his ribs. He stood in the dark living room, listening to the roar of the storm, waiting for it to happen again. It didn't. He didn't sleep that night. He sat on the stairs, just staring at the front door until the gray light of morning washed the storm away. In the calm, wet silence, the first thing he did was check the cameras. The one covering the living room window had triggered, time-stamped at 22:17, the exact moment of the knocks. The file was called window_2024-1115_2217.mp4. He opened it. The footage was grainy, rain streaking the night vision lens. He could see the outline of the window, the reflection of the room inside. For a few seconds, just the storm. Then the first knock. The camera's microphone picked it up as a deep, distorted thump. The window visibly shuddered. A flash of lightning bleached the image white for a frame. Second knock. Another thump. Third knock. Then nothing. Just the continuing rain. 3 distinct, separate events. Captured. Recorded. A sound that had a physical effect on his house, now trapped in a digital file. This wasn't in his head. This wasn't sleep paralysis. Something had hit his window. Hard. He spent the morning in a daze, cleaning up storm debris in the garden. That's when his neighbor, Mistress Petrova, came out to check her own fence. She was a kind woman in her 60s with a no-nonsense Polish accent. "Quite a storm, yes?" she called over. "I thought the old oak had come down on your side." Leo just nodded, his mind elsewhere. "Those 3 big bangs," she continued, shaking her head, "right on your wall. I heard them from my kitchen. I thought for sure it was a branch." Leo stopped raking. The air went very still. "3 bangs?" he asked, his voice carefully flat. "Yes, 3. Very slow, very heavy. In the middle of the worst of the wind." She gestured towards the side of his cottage. "Right there, near your sitting room." I looked out, but with the rain. "I saw nothing. Just assumed it was the tree." She smiled, a little apologetically. "I saw nothing. No damage, I hope." Leo looked from her face to the pristine, unmarked wall of his cottage. No broken render. No scratches. Nothing. "No," he said quietly. "No damage." She went back inside. Leo stood in his garden, the damp seeping into his shoes. A reasonable person would have packed a bag right then. A reasonable person would have seen the chain of evidence, the hallucination, the digital ghost, the physical knock, the corroborating witness. A reasonable person would have drawn a line. But Leo was past reason. He was in the territory of proof, and he had just gotten his most compelling piece yet. Something that existed not just in his mind or in a camera's glitch, but in the shared physical world, in the hearing of a sensible neighbor. It wasn't a branch. He knew it. No. A part of him needed to know what it was. That's the trap, you see. The need to understand becomes a kind of sickness. It makes you stay in the room. It makes you listen for the next knock. And Leo, he was already listening. Leo didn't pack a bag after the storm. He didn't call an estate agent. He did something worse. He went looking for an answer. The terror had curdled into a desperate, morbid curiosity. He needed to know what was in his house. He needed to give it a name. So he drove to the local records office in the next town over. It was a modern, soulless building with fluorescent lights humming. The perfect place to bury a ghost, he thought. He told the archivist he was researching the history of his property, the old forge on Church Road in Pentlow. He was polite. He smiled. His hands, tucked under the table, were trembling. They brought him the file, a thin manila folder with deeds and planning permissions from the 1930s, and there, nestled between a receipt for roofing tiles and a note about drainage, was a single sheet of paper. It was an invoice from a builder, dated August 1938. The description of materials was typed and faded, but one line was handwritten in blue ink smudged from time. It listed, plain as day, for foundation and rear wall, 800 salvage brick and stone from Borley demolition. Leo read it 3 times. The words didn't change. Borley. He knew the name. Everyone with a passing interest in the strange knew the name. Borley Rectory. The most haunted house in England. A Victorian pile, famous for phantom footsteps, phantom carriages, and most of all, a phantom nun. A mourning figure in a dark habit seen walking the grounds. The stories were legend, cheap paperback legend. His mouth went dry. A metallic taste filled it like old coins. He looked up from the paper. The quiet of the records office felt heavy and suffocating. The hum of the lights was suddenly too loud. He asked the archivist, his voice strangely calm, if they had any photographs related to Borley. The man, an older fellow with kind eyes, nodded. "There's a local history journal that did a reprint, somewhere in the periodicals." He returned with a slim magazine from the 1970s called Essex Past and Present. He opened it to a dog-eared page. "This is the one most people ask for," he said, sliding it across. It was a reprinted photograph, grainy and black and white, taken in the 1920s, according to the caption. It showed a blurred, long-distance shot of the rectory garden. And there, in the foreground, walking along a path, was a figure. A tall figure in a long, dark habit. A deep hood obscured its face. The photo was poor quality, the details smeared. But the silhouette, the posture, the utter stillness of the form caught mid-stride. It was a perfect match. It was her. Leo didn't say a word. He just stared. The rational part of his mind, the part that had clung to sleep disorders and stress, gave one final, feeble shudder. And then it went quiet. Here was the box. Here was the label. Not a neurological glitch, not a personal psychosis. A story. A borrowed story, made from borrowed bricks. The archivist was talking, his voice coming from far away. Terrible business, that place. All demolished just before the war. They sold off the materials, you know. Lots of local buildings got a piece of it. Funny to think, really. Funny. Leo managed a nod. He thanked the man. He walked out into the overcast afternoon. The 20-mile drive back to Pentlow felt infinite. And this is the moment you need to understand. The connection didn't bring comfort. It didn't solve anything. It made it real in a way the knocks and the footage never could. This wasn't some random haunting. This was specific. This was historical. This was a ghost with a pedigree. The entity had a name now. It had a history. And that history was literally in his walls. Every brick on the rear of his cottage, every stone in the foundation, they weren't just building materials. They were relics. They were pieces of a tomb. He sat in his car, parked outside the old forge, and he didn't go in. He looked at the ivy-covered bricks, the 1930s facade. It looked so ordinary, so solid, but it wasn't. It was a patchwork, a quilt sewn from a shroud. The 20 miles between Pentlow and Borley were meaningless. Distance meant nothing to a story. A story just needs a place to happen. And now it had one. He finally went inside. The house was cold. It always felt cold now. He didn't look at the hallway where the static had congealed. He didn't look at the living room window. He went straight to his laptop. He typed 2 words into the search bar. Borley none. The screen filled with images, blurry drawings, dramatic recreations, and in everyone the same tall hooded figure, the same silent posture. He had been trying to diagnose a symptom, but he'd been wrong. He didn't have a sickness. He had a tenant. He left. Finally, the morning after he found the invoice, Leo packed a single suitcase. He didn't care about the tools or the half-painted walls. He just walked out of the old forge, locked the door, and drove. He didn't look back. He told himself he was looking at the road ahead. His new flat was in Walthamstow, London. A modern, boxy building with white walls and electric heating. No ivy. No history. He chose a 3rd-floor flat. No garden view, just other buildings. That was the point. There was nothing here to haunt him. No salvaged bricks, no stories in the plaster. For the first few weeks it worked. The silence in the flat was just silence. The dark was just an absence of light. He slept, in fits and starts, but he slept. The digital clock by his bed would show 3:33, then 3:34, then morning. No paralysis. No leaden dread. Just the distant hum of the city. He'd packed the Ring cameras in a cardboard box. He'd wiped the data from the app, or so he thought. He wanted to forget the files, the hallway clip, the window knock. They felt like artifacts from a fever dream, a bad trip he was finally shaking off. He left the box sealed, tucked in the back of his new beige cupboard. He started to breathe again. He started to believe in the world of streetlights and takeaway coffee and neutral carpets. The terror in Essex began to feel like something that had happened to another man in another life. This is where we should stop. This is where the story should end. A man escapes a haunted house. He finds peace in a clean, anonymous city. The end. But you know it doesn't end there. You're listening to this, so you already know. It was a Tuesday in late January, a grey, drizzly London afternoon. Leo was at his laptop, paying a bill. An email notification popped up. The sender was Ring. The subject line read, "Your 2024 year in review." He almost deleted it. A year in review. A highlight reel of captured packages and prowling cats. But a cold, stupid curiosity flickered. His thumb hovered, then clicked. It was a cheerful, automated email. Colorful graphics. "Thanks for being a Ring member." It showed a grid of thumbnails, supposedly his most memorable moments from his cameras. Most were blurry and meaningless. A delivery driver, a fox. But one thumbnail, in the bottom right corner, made his blood stop. It was a night vision image. Green and black. It wasn't the hallway of the cottage. It wasn't the garden. It was a bathroom. A modern bathroom with white tiles. The timestamp beneath it read, December 18th, 9:15 a.m. December 18th. The day he had moved out of Pemplo. The day he had packed the last box, including the cameras. The thumbnail was small and compressed, but he could see the shape. A tall, dark smudge in the center of the frame. A familiar silhouette. His hands were ice. He couldn't feel his fingers. He told himself it was a glitch. A mix-up in Ring servers? It had to be old footage, mislabeled. Maybe from the cottage bathroom, somehow. That was the only rational answer. There was a link beneath the thumbnail. It said, "Relive this moment." He clicked it. His browser opened. It loaded the Ring Cloud portal. A single, high-resolution frame filled the screen, not a clip. A still image. The full, uncompressed data. It was his bathroom. But not in Pentlow. It was the bathroom in his London flat. He recognized the specific pattern of the grout, the brand of the mirrored cabinet he'd bought from IKEA. The reflection in the center of that mirror was clear and utterly impossible. It showed the view from inside the bathroom looking back at the door. The door was slightly ajar, and in the dark slice of the hallway beyond, standing perfectly still, was the nun. The dark habit, the deep hood, the void for a face. She was there, in his flat, on the day he moved in. But the camera that took this, it was in a sealed box in the cupboard. It had no battery. It was disconnected. It was off. He stared at the reflection in the digital mirror. The nun stared back from the digital hallway. The metadata on the side of the screen was plain. Device, hallway camera, bedroom, date and time, December 18th, 2024, 9:15 and 23 seconds. Location services enabled. Location services. The camera had recorded its own GPS coordinates. He hadn't checked them before. He made himself look now. The coordinates weren't for Church Road, Pentlow. They were for his address in Walthamstow. The camera had been here, in London, on, recording, seeing her when it was supposed to be dead in a box. Leo sat at his desk in his safe, modern flat, and he understood. He hadn't left her behind in the cottage. He hadn't escaped by putting 20 miles, then 40 between them. He had packed her with the china. She wasn't in the bricks. She never had been. The bricks were just a story she'd used to get his attention, a name to make herself real to him. Now she had his attention. And she had a new story. One set in a beige third-floor flat with electric heating. The terror didn't flood back. It didn't need to. It uncoiled from a place deep inside him where it had been waiting, patient, all along. It filled him, quiet and absolute. He closed the browser. The screen went black. In the dark glass of his monitor, he saw the reflection of his own room behind him, the tidy desk, the blank wall. He didn't want to turn around. He knew he wouldn't see anything. She wasn't for seeing, not in the light. She was for knowing. And now he knew she was here. The rules had changed. The game had moved, and he had no idea what the next move was. Leo did what anyone would do. He called ring support. He was calm and methodical. He explained that a camera, packed away and disconnected, seemed to have uploaded a file from a location it was never at. The support agent was polite, but baffled. They checked the device serial number. They confirmed its last online status was October 31st, the day before he powered it down in Pentlow. They saw no subsequent uploads from that device. According to their servers, that camera had been a brick in a box for over 2 months. Then he sent them the frame, the reflection in the London bathroom, the timestamp, the GPS coordinates embedded in the metadata. There was a long silence on the line. Then the agent's voice changed. The polite script evaporated. He sounded genuinely confused. "Sir, this data packet, it's not formatted like our standard image files. The header is wrong. And the location stamp, it's hard-coded in a way we don't do. It's like it was injected. Injected where?" Leo asked, his voice flat. "Into your personal cloud history, but not through any of our normal channels." The agent cleared his throat. "I'm going to escalate this to our engineering team. This is anomalous." Anomalous. That was the word they settled on, not a glitch, not a user error. An anomalous data packet. They offered to purge it from his account, to wipe the file clean from their servers and his. He told them no. He didn't know why. Maybe because it was the only proof he had left that he wasn't insane. A ghost in the machine was still a ghost. It was something that existed outside of him. Deleting it felt like surrender, or worse, like covering up a crime, so he kept it. The unending tape, a single frozen moment. He didn't look at it often, but he knew it was there. In his cloud storage, nestled between videos of a friend's birthday and a clip of a sunset. A digital abscess, a permanent fixture. The sleep paralysis didn't return. He'd lie awake sometimes, watching the clock slide past 3:33, his body tense, waiting for the leaden weight. It never came. The London flat was quiet. Just the hum of the fridge and the distant traffic. But the silence wasn't peaceful. It was the silence of a watched room. The horror had mutated. It was no longer about something happening, it was about something being. The profound dread of a violated sanctuary. His safe modern flat had been cataloged and invaded, not by breaking a window, but by appearing in a reflection. The rules were gone. If she could be in a digital reflection from a powered-off camera, where else could she be? He found himself avoiding mirrors at night. He'd close his laptop instead of letting it sleep, so the screen went black. He'd hear a floorboard creak in another flat, and his mind wouldn't think neighbor. It would think duration. It would think 14 minutes. He was living in the aftermath. And the aftermath is just the event, stretched thin over the rest of your life. I wish I could tell you he found an expert or a priest or that he burned the camera. But he didn't. He just continued. He went through the motions of a life. Because what else do you do? The file is still there. I'd seen it. He showed it to me once, on his phone, in a brightly lit cafe. It looked like nothing. A blurry bathroom, a dark smudge in a doorway. You could dismiss it as a towel on a hook, a trick of the light. But when you know what you're looking at, when you see the specific terrible silhouette, your blood goes cold. So here is the question we're left with, the only one that matters. Was that image a final farewell? A last piece of proof delivered across miles to say, I was real. You didn't imagine it. Now we're done. Or was it a confirmation of a new, silent tendency? Not in the bricks, not in the land, but in the story itself. He'd learned her name. He'd looked for her history. He'd given her his attention and some stories. Once you give them that, they don't need a house anymore. They have a host. Leo thinks the episode stopped because the rules changed. The paralysis, the knocks, the static figure, those are the introductions. The establishing of facts. Now the facts are established. Now she doesn't need to appear. She just needs to be known. And he knows. He knows every time he opens his cloud storage and sees that file name. Every time he walks into his bathroom and glances, just for a second, at the mirror. He's living with it. The unending tape. Not play. Just paused on a single impossible frame. And the truly unsettling thing, the thing that keeps me up sometimes, is the thought that maybe it's not paused at all. Maybe we just can't see the rest of it yet. The tape has reached its end. I hope the stories tonight brought a pleasant chill to your spine as you drifted further into the dark. Thank you for braving the shadows here at the Sleep Paralysis tapes. If you are still awake, lying still in the quiet, remember to contact me with your own unsettling encounters so they can be added to our growing archive. As my voice fades away, let the silence of your room wrap around you completely. May your sleep be undisturbed, your doors remain locked, and your morning arrive safely. Until we open the tapes again, good night.